Hey, how's it going? I wanted to make a video to address some questions I've gotten in comments about the API box console. I'm coming up on a year of owning it now, so it's nice to have that perspective. And I know at least one person has asked, actually more than one I think, about just the tracking facility of it. I think the big question people have the most is, how much of a full-featured console is it, and how much of it is a glorified summing console? And the answer is yes. It's a bit of both, and it's a weird combination of frustratingly missing some features, but amazingly delivering, the stuff that's really important. And 1 year in, I have to say I'm extremely pleased that I have it. I think I appreciate it even more now that I've gotten more comfortable with it. And if there's a takeaway, if you want to stop watching the video right now, the takeaway is that yes, this small format $15,000 console does deliver the API sound. It's the same parts and electronics that you will find in a $50,000 or $100,000 console, and it does sound like it. And that's what matters, at the end of the day. Everything else is, how did you get there, and and how are you using it? I've seen people get bent out of shape about the summing side of it, and I guess let's just look at that for a second. If you've done any research at all or seen any literature, the architecture of the board is the left side is the recording side, the right side is the summing side. Now, in mixing, I use both. There's line inputs on the left side, so at the end of the day, there's 24 channels, 24 inputs, and there's also the summing input. So that's designed if you have two consoles, or two of these, or any other summer, being able to bring it in at the mix output. But it's functionally 26 inputs. So 26 inputs on mixdown, and that's not bad. I've found a way to make it work for my needs. And then the other thing that people get a little bit hung up about, the 500 series rack is designed, it's a little strange, and I do wish they would address this, in that there are separate inputs to the 500 series rack, but they defeat the line input and mic input, so you can't just plug them in, and connect them to a patch bay and forget about them and leave something normal. It doesn't work because it defeats the other inputs. And as a result, you see a lot of people running this console with nothing in those racks, and the thinking is, well, I'm stuck. If I put any gear in there, I can only use it on those full channels, and I don't want to dedicate gear to that. I want flexibility. I get that logic, I really do. But to be honest with you, I find it so convenient to have those EQs in those channels, that I prefer having them in there. There's definitely a sonic benefit to not having to patch anything and having them directly in line, both with recording and mixing. And I do think, like if you're using API EQs with the API preamps, there is probably a particularly good impedance match there. So you're getting a particularly sweet channel strip out of that. But it's really it's you're as opposed to, snaking out to a patch bay, doing all of your patch bay connections, snaking back, you're bypassing an awful lot of impedance there, of capacitance there. And so there is a sonic benefit to having them in there, and it's just convenient. They're right there. If you have a drum session or a whole band session, it's great to not have to think about it and just, hit in and go. So I'm actually okay with that, and I use it and I like it. The other thing is, if you can afford the console and you can afford 8 analog EQs to put in that rack, you can probably afford a few more. I mean, I don't have a lot, but I have a few more. And so if I want to run, my electric guitar bus through 560s, well, I have 2 more 560s. And if I feel I'm hurting for them, I'll buy a few more eventually. It's not the end of the world. All of the summing inputs do have inserts, so you can put anything you want onto them if that really is a big deal. I guess why don't we do that? Why don't we address the summing side? So again, I've seen people get bent out of shape about the fact that there aren't transformers on these inputs, and I guess the feeling is, well, they're not doing any sonic benefit at that point. Well, I don't think that's accurate, actually. Yes, it's not hitting transformers, but first of all, there are transformers on the mix out, so you're hitting that. There's the 527 compressor that's in the mix bus. If you're using analog EQs in that 500 series rack, there's going to be transformers in those EQs as well, and of course there are in the mic preamps. So at a certain point in time, it's like, how much transformer do you really need? If it's that important to you, aren't you using preamps that have them too? I think almost all of my pre's have them. So that's and any outboard gear too. So again, at a certain point in time, it's like, I think too much is being made out of that. But it's a personal thing. If it's that important to you, though, there are inserts on every one of those channels, so you can send it to gear that has transformers, and you can get it that way. It's up to you whether it's that important to make that decision or not. For me, not only does my mix bus hit the 527 compressor and the main output transformers, but there is a mix bus insert, and for me, I have a Fern VT7 compressor. This is a tube compressor that's also transformer balanced, and I have it feeding directly into the Chandler curve bender, germanium circuits. So it's warm. It's as warm as it needs to be. It's as punchy as it needs to be from that. Between that compressor, that EQ, that's a pretty good master channel. I really don't feel like I'm hurting for anything with that. So that's, and I think, again, most people that are going to make this investment, you're going to have some master bus processors that you're going to like as well. And so, again, at the end of the day, does the fact that there's no transformers on that input side really matter? I really don't think it does, but it's up to you. It's a personal call. Here's the thing, though. Whether they do, whatever they have or not, it's still an API. And the amazing thing about it, and again, I appreciate this more and more the longer I have it, and the more I learn how to exploit the console. For $15,000, this thing sounds like every other API. It sounds like a 1608. It sounds like, the bottom end is huge and tight. I mean, here, the music that's been playing is an artist named Matt Friedman. He's, obviously a country artist. He's fantastic. He's been having his tracks done in Nashville by Nashville producers, and the tracks get sent up here to Pennsylvania, and we're recording his vocals here and then doing mixing and mastering here. So you know, just to give you, this is the iPhone mic, but you know,
when you kiss me in the morning,
it's big.
It cuts right through my soul. When you wear that leather jacket, it drives me out.
And you know, it's the same motivation that made Blackbird Studios buy a big API console. It's the legit API sound, and either that's important to you or it isn't. But if it is important to you, then all of a sudden this becomes the greatest deal you've ever heard of, because it's getting the API sound for nothing practically, you know, for a fraction of the cost of, you know, any other API console. And it's an amazing value at that point. And you know, you have to learn, you know, pushing those output transformers and that master bus and what works for any, you know, any given song or what you like. But it's amazing. It you know, it really is a legit API sound. And I have never worked on the competition. I've never done a lot of mixing on an XL desk or the new AMS Neve consoles. So I don't know if those boards actually deliver, you know, like does the XL desk actually sound like a duality or something? I don't know if it does. Maybe it does. Yeah, does the AMS, you know, really sound like an, you know, 88R? I don't know. Maybe it does. I know with the AMS, it's $10,000 more. You're in a whole different tax bracket at that point. So that's something to consider. Also, just 8 API mic preamps and 2 compressors, that right there, you know, you're talking a big, you know, big chunk of the price of the console right there. So it's an interesting thought. And I guess I'm trying to think of just like, oh, well, so the question about tracking, yes, there's only 8 inputs. They are API 312 preamps. They differ a little bit from the current crop of 312s that are in 500 series form. They do not have the impedance switch that the new ones have, but you do have output faders. So you can drive the input and pull down the output fader, and that's nice and convenient. They also do have high-pass filters, which is nice. And inserts, so that's nice too. Also, just again, I can't stress enough the sonic benefit of being able to go directly from an API preamp to an API EQ, and the impedance friendliness there, and the capacitance friendliness of not going through miles of cable and connectors. So there's that. And then there's, you know, the console convenience of having your Q bus right there that you can make your headphone mix like that. And little things, you know, just like solo in place, things like that. You end up using it. It's nice. So, but yes, there's only 8 channels. And so, I mean, 1 or 2 people have commented about whether it's really worth it for that. And, you know, the deal is, once you run out of your 8, you just go to what you were doing before you got a console, which is, you know, you have your mic pre's tied to a patch bay, hopefully. And, you know, I mean, I actually, you know, I have the API pre's in the bay, and then it just goes over to the BAE, the Neve stuff, DW Fern, Hazelrig, Great River, Chandler, etc. It's not a big deal, you know. You're just using it the way you would anyway, you know, in the patch bay. And as a matter of fact, you know, personally, 8 API mic pre's is actually plenty. At that point, I want other flavors. Like, I don't want 24 of the same thing, of anything. You know, it wouldn't matter what it was. I don't want 24 of the same thing. So, you know, you've heard some people say this. As a matter of fact, one of the producers in API's own promotional videos about this console laughs and says, like, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I think you might be better off with the box console than a 1608. I think that's what he's talking about, which is, you know, there's a lot of features in a 1608 that are not in the box, but as a producer, you know, again, do you really want all of the same thing anyway? And, you know, so that may have been what they had in mind. The other funny thought that I had was, yeah, the box console has a summing input. That's really your 25 and 26 inputs. And the idea is you could have another box console or any other summing console coming in at the master channel. But it just got me thinking, like, you could buy two of these and it would still be $20,000 less than a 1608. And you'd have 16 channels of 500 series and mic pre's and inputs. So that's a funny thought to me. Ergonomically, it's not great. Like, things aren't next to each other, but still, it's a funny thought. Anyway, so yeah, from a tracking perspective, you know, it's your call, but I really don't think I don't miss it. I don't feel like I'm lacking. And from a mixing perspective, yes, there's workarounds. You know, it would be lovely to have, you know, 2 more aux sends. It would be really nice to have aux returns. That's the one that hurts the most for me, because I have to use other inputs that I want to use for actual channel, you know, for audio channels, for effects returns and things. So it would have been awesome if all of the 4 aux sends had corresponding aux returns, and I'm sure that they thought about that at API and decided, wow, that's a good way to get people to upgrade if they don't have that. But you know, what I do is I'm using this is from other videos of mine, but just quickly rehash. I use the stereo send, which is 3 and 4. That can be a Q send for when you're recording, but it can I use it in mixing to create a drum bus, a stereo drum bus, and I send it to a pair of distressors, and then I bring that back on the insert return on these 2 channels, and I can, again, it's clunky. Like, I use the fader bypass on this side so that I don't have to memorize fader positions for recall. But it is a little bit clunky. So, I mean, to adjust the level here, I'm just playing with the send and then the inputs and outputs on the distressors. But it's not that big a deal. You know, you get your level and you forget about it pretty much. You know, it's not a make or break thing. It's not a $50,000 problem. You know what I mean? And so that's how I'm doing the drum bus, and then I'm using auxes 1 and 2 to send to this lexicon unit, which can actually it's convenient because it can take 2 mono sends, create 2 entirely separate stereo reverbs with their own engines, and then it does combine them on output. So you only have, you know, you have to, like, I do my balance in the reverbs in how much I'm sending to either one, but I can have a drum reverb on one and a vocal reverb on the other, and it's convenient. And then what I do is I bring that back in the summing input. So that's my 25 and 26. And, you know, it works. It works for me. At the end of the day,
It's got that good sugar that's always nice and sweet. I wanna bring you home to mama.
you know,
You belong to my family tree.
it's big, it's analog.
Good love, girl, it's all I need. It's all I need.
The only other thing I would say was when I bought the console, I had a Dangerous Music ST monitor controller that I loved. I really loved it a lot, and I used it for controlling my subwoofer. And I was really worried because this board does not have sub control like the SSL XL has. But my sub, like most active subs, does have its own bass management built in, so I just used that instead to set, you know, the high pass filter and whatnot. And it's, you know what, it's fine. It works great. And what I was shocked by is the monitor control, for whatever reason, it's just super smooth. I mean, one thing about the Dangerous Music controller that they list as a feature is it's all click, it's relay clicks, you know, and that makes it easy to reset, which is nice. But it's, I don't know, it's a weird thing. It never annoyed me when I had it. Like, I was like, oh great, this is nice, you know, the clicking, you know, like I know where I am, blah blah blah. But moving to a really high quality, really smooth throw variable pot was actually nice. It was like, oh, it's actually nice to not have it clicking while I'm moving it, and it just feels very natural. And you know, there's still dim and cut and mono control, and you know, it has what I need. But I was shocked at how smooth it was, and also as transparent as the Dangerous Music is, and it is, it's a really nice unit coming right out of the board. Right, like for me, like there's a left-right, you know, control room out that goes into my sub, and then my sub outputs to the satellite speakers. It's more direct, and I feel like it sounds like it. It's just, it was a surprising feeling of actually stepping up when I was afraid I was going to be stepping down, and I went and sold my Dangerous Music. So that's interesting. Now there's also no surround control, so if that's something you think you want to do, that's something to consider as well. But I was really pleasantly surprised by the monitor control. I guess the only other thing I would love to touch on is the way I've made this work for me is I have created templates. For me, my DAW is Nuendo, and so I have 16 channels here. Actually, no, sorry, I have all my output channels here, all output buses here. So 24 output buses, and you know, and we're using the left side for 1 through 8 for drums. And the only thing that I would warn people about is that the insert on the master bus does not have any level control, and the compressor, the 527, which I love, it sounds great, does not have any output control. So it's very easy as you're driving the console and driving the mix to then be sending too much level to your insert. And what I find I usually have to do is to make sure that I'm not overdoing it here, is just multi-select my output buses. And if I'm driving my master insert too much, I'm pulling all those channels down together at the same time. And then you have to be careful, because if you're using analog inserts here, you're obviously affecting that level too. It's something to be aware of and something to be careful of. You know, it's like everything else in that, like, as long as you're aware of the situation and it becomes part of your routine, it's not a problem. And you can still, you're still dealing with an API console with an API sound. You just have to be careful. The other thing that's helped me a lot is, I mean, I have a bazillion plugins, but I've become really, I wouldn't say dependent upon, but I've been becoming really happy with this SSL system. The controller, the UC1, is nice. I enjoy it, but honestly, it wouldn't mean anything if the plugins themselves weren't so good, and they really are. The version 2 of the channel strip and the bus compressor, I really use them. They're amazing. You know, I basically have them on every one of these output buses. The only thing to be, again, this is a warning to be aware of, with Steinberg DAWs, with Cubase and Nuendo, there's an issue where if you put the SSL plugins on actual output buses, the 360 software, which is the thing that lets you see it like a console, will not recognize them. It will only see the plugins when they're on audio channels, you know, effects return channels, group channels, anything that's not an output bus, basically. And I think they're working on it. I think they're going to come up with a solution for that. But so for the meantime, you know, I just make group channels that in front of the output buses, and it's a little redundant, but sometimes I want them anyway. You know, if there's, you know, like I'll have 3 or 4 different guitar groups and then send them all to the electric guitar bus. So I might need them anyway, but even for channels where I wouldn't need that, like the snare, I still use a group channel so that the SSL plugin will show up in that software. And that's a Steinberg only issue with Pro Tools and any other DAW. It doesn't have that distinction, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, I love the quality of these SSL plugins, and I have found that a hybrid approach that leans heavily on those and then the analog side has been working out really wonderfully for me. And you know what I'll do is, like, I'll do the analog mix, and it'll go through the 527s and the Fern and the Chandler, and then it comes back into the DAW, and I will hit it. Like, Nuendo is unique in that it has input channels, which a lot of DAWs don't have, where you can, where if you apply plugins, it will print them. So I'm putting the SSL bus compressor there, and in this case I'm doing a multi-band compression as well, very lightly in both cases, as you can see. But and then the main thing is I'm also using you know, a brick wall limiter. I absolutely love the Plugin Alliance BX True Peak for that. And then all I'm doing is I'm capturing in real time to an open track. And you know, this system has been working really well for me. And the recall of the plugins, having, you know, that much in the box, but also getting the analog benefits where it's needed, has been really great for me. So I hope I've addressed some of the questions. Somebody complained that I say too much. I'm doing my best. I'm working on it, I promise. But this is not what I mainly do. I do engineering, so it's a new talent. It's a new skill for me. Hope it wasn't too much of a drag. All right, thanks guys. Please like, share, all that good stuff, and please comment if you have any questions. I am thrilled with this setup right now. I couldn't be happier. The PMCs have been phenomenal. I love them so much, and it's a joy to come in and work on this system every day. So very happy camper here. Thanks guys, bye.